everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag here at the Skating Penguin Network. I am Garrett Bahana. Alongside me are my two co-hosts, as always, Snail and Robbie Noggle. We are back to answer more of your questions that you submitted to our mailbag tweet over at the Skating Penguin Network Twitter account. And without further ado, Robbie, as always, you get question one. Let's dive into it. Question one for part two comes from Brian. Robbie, what are some of your favorite sports outside of hockey?
Well, Brian, I am a sports guy through and through. I love a ton of sports. Football is a big one. Grew up playing baseball, loving baseball, and despite its downfalls and being a Pirates fan, I still love baseball. Can't quit that. Basketball, I'm more of a college basketball fan. I follow the NBA kind of out of my peripheral. I love the Olympics. I'm a huge Olympics guy. Every summer, every year they come around, every summer and winter. The past 10, 15 years really got into soccer at many different levels, international, as well as here domestically. I like basically any sport I've watched, even if I don't fully understand it. I've watched the full spectrum of sports. I'd love to get into like a rugby or cricket, but their popularity in the United States is not exactly massive. So I watch the entire spectrum of sports, Brian. So the sport's not always have been, always will be. And I again, times where it probably hurts. I probably waste a lot of time caring about sports, but in the end, I don't regret it. It's a nice little hobby to have. I will say that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that shares in that. Sports are fun and a nice distraction most of the time. Question number two, sticking with Brian here, heading over to Snail. Brian says, and we were talking about this a little bit, so Snail, you can comment on this, but Brian says, I will also be joining Snail with needing a knee replacement in my 40s.
Yeah, I mean, 40s would be like nice. I could probably use a knee replacement sooner than that. Growing up, I played sports all year round. I was a catcher for many years at a really high level. Something you guys probably don't know about me. I actually played at a pretty high level of baseball for a long time growing up. I was in travel leagues, select leagues, wood bat leagues, and I made all these teams as a catcher. That was kind of that's probably my like little niche thing that got me to play up in these like select leagues, because catchers aren't the most popular position, and I was really good at it. But yeah, definitely was feeling the creaks and moans of my knees at younger age than most, and then other sports, as well as I've skateboarded for almost 2 decades now, and that is not kind to the knees. Even in my older age, it's not like I'm skating like I did when I was a lot younger, but it's still there's still some impact going on there. So, and my job, I was talking to these guys earlier about my job as a painter for so long. And that's not going to slow down anytime soon. So, I'm 32 right now. Hopefully, I can keep I can get a little bit more out of these knees before I need a replacement. But 40, maybe Brian and I will both be, I don't know, have dusted knees and like limping around. Like, think of my uncle, just like crooked legs, walking all funny. But yeah, 40 would be nice. Let's see, going over to Garrett here. Question number 3 from Tony Gale. He asks, what are your thoughts on Patrick Waugh taking over as head coach of the Islanders? Patty Waugh back in the NHL.
I remember Waugh's tenure as head coach of the Avalanche, and it was filled with nothing but unbridled chaos half the time. And pulling goaltenders with like 5 minutes left in regulation. When I found out the news, I texted one of my buddies and I said, I can't believe the Islanders just revived Patrick Waugh. And then the follow-up message I sent was I was like pretending I was a commentator, and I said, and There goes Ilya Sorokin to the bench with 19 minutes left in the third period as the Islanders are down. They go fare better with the extra attacker. So I think it's just going to be absolute pure chaos. It is such a Lou Lamoriello hire to bring a chaotic man like Patrick Waugh back into the NHL coaching ranks. I mean, the NHL does have that reputation of recycling guys in and out, in and out, in and out. So this kind of feeds into that narrative, although Waugh has been out of the national spotlight since leaving Colorado, basically, but he's back. I don't know if this really makes the Islanders a better team per se. I don't really think that they're that much of a threat in my eyes anyway. But at the very least, the Islanders will probably be more entertaining than they were previously. So I will watch social media for any viral clips of Patrick Waugh screaming at opposing coaches, getting up on the bench and like threatening fisticuffs to the opposing coach, or any fun viral sound bites that he may or may not include in press conferences. So I cannot wait for that. As we go over now to question number 4. Question 4 here goes to Robbie from Brian. Robbie, who has your favorite goal celebration?
So I can't say that there's too many unique goal celebrations anymore. At least ones that are, I guess, tied to a player. I know a few years ago, Evgeny Kuznetsov did that bird dance after he'd score. Patrick Kane had some interesting ones. It feels more like you just don't get anybody that's claiming like an NFL or something like that, where they kind of create one or a specific dance or celebration for themselves.
Almost like an emote.
Yeah. I mean, you're on skates, so you're kind of limited to what you can do, and there is only so many people on the ice. I know I've seen guys try to gritty, and actually, I mean, on skates, they've done a pretty good job. I will admit. You're on skates, you're on ice, you're moving pretty much constantly. You're not really staying in one place. I really am a fan of the big time goal celebrations, like a late goal, a late tying goal, and anything. I think in the playoffs, every goal it seems like celebrate a little bit harder. So I'm more about the goal celebrations in the postseason. I just feel like there's more oomph behind them. Even your state, like even if it's like your first goal of the playoffs in like the first round or the first or second game, it feels like there's just a little more energy behind it, and rightfully so. More for if we're going specific, I mean, seeing guys take some of the Fortnite dances like a gritty, which isn't really a Fortnite dance, that was an NFL thing, but yeah, I mean, it's a little difficult on ice and on skates, but I like the energy of the celebration more than, I guess, a specific style. Question number 5, and this one's we're jumping over to Kim Larson for this one for Snail. Are there any defensive players in the league now that can be compared to Scott Niedermayer? And Kim says he was such a joy to watch.
No, I don't think so. Niedermayer, dude, like Norris Trophy, 4 Stanley Cups, just a physical specimen. You hear stories about him, and he was just otherworldly with his cardio and stuff. So it's like almost a disservice to try to compare some people to Scott Niedermayer, because I agree, Kim, that like I think like him and Chris Pronger are so like underappreciated by a lot of like NHL fans in this day and age, that maybe didn't quite catch him. Definitely not in their prime, but even in their later years, they were still impactful. But I guess to be the closest like defenseman that I can think of that could maybe be described similarly to Scott Niedermayer would be like Victor Hedman. Big left shot D. He's getting older, but he's still a horseback there. He just logs a ton of minutes. He's got a couple cups and was a key contributor on those cup teams. I think that Hedman's probably a lifer in Tampa Bay. Scott Niedermayer, he actually was on a couple different teams making an impact. See, it's like hard to compare him, but I go Victor Hedman, or maybe one of the first guys that came to mind also was not Jonathan, Devin Taves in Colorado. Just another guy that seems that he can just skate forever, and he's offensive, but he's very responsible defensively. That's another thing. Niedermayer was offensively gifted, but very responsible defensively. He's not Erik Karlsson out there. So I don't know. Yeah, probably I would go Devin Taves or the big Swede in Tampa, Victor Hedman. All right, question number 6 here from Kim Larson again. Which goalie would you say has had the best single playoff season? I think that John Sebastian Jaguar has one of the best for the Ducks in 2002-2003.
Jaguar is definitely up there. When I was looking into this question, I was doing some research. In terms of like recency bias, Marc-Andre Fleury's run to help, I think was it the Golden Knights? That was their inaugural season, right? If memory serves. Yeah, he had a good run, but in my research, and it made so much sense after I came to realize that obviously Jaguar's up there, but would we all three be in agreement saying that 2011 Tim Thomas is probably the best playoff goaltender performance you've ever seen?
Yeah, Timmy T's got to be in that conversation as well. Just
Yeah, probably.
yeah, Timmy T's got to be in there. There's some Brodeur years that are in there too, as well. But Timmy T, Jaguar are definitely two that Holtby and don't sleep on Holtby in 2018 either.
Yeah, that's right.
Holtby was an absolute just freak show in the Caps run to the playoffs or to the Cup.
I guess recently, Vasilevsky never losing 2 games in a row in the playoffs.
That's
that's a great stat. Yeah,
that's nuts.
Over the course of like 2 years,
2 years, yeah, shortened seasons, I might add, but still, playoffs are playoffs.
So I don't know. I think for me, just based on the research that I had, I'll go with Timmy Thomas, but for the sake of this conversation, there's probably a couple of different goaltenders that we could list and, be valid in arguing for them.
Absolutely.
Question 7, as we go back to Robbie here. Question 7 from Kim Larson. Robbie, do you think Marc-Andre Fleury will be traded before the deadline? And if he is traded, who do you think would be interested in acquiring the veteran goaltender?
I think it all depends on if he wants to be traded or not. I mean, he's kind of alluded to that this is more than likely his last run. I don't think he'll be traded before February 9th when the Penguins are in Minnesota, because that's already scheduled as a Marc-Andre Fleury appreciation night. The Penguins get a second one this year with the Hornquist one back in December. So I don't think he'll be traded before then. He seems to be very happy in Minnesota. I guess if you would guarantee him a spot on, I'd have to look at what teams need goaltenders. If you could guarantee him some playing time and he wasn't just a backup, I think he'd maybe take a trade. But I really think it's whatever he feels. He's going to be one to make the final call. I think him and Bill Guerin have a good connection with each other, and Guerin's going to do right by whatever Fleury wants to do, rather than just try to go after. Because I don't think he would bring in much in terms of assets. It'd be really much if he wants to take one more run in a cup. If not, I could just see him riding it out in Minnesota and heading into retirement.
Could just for like hypothetical sake, like, do you think that could you see him hitching his wagon to Colorado or Edmonton?
I don't know if he wants to go to Canada. Colorado, I could see.
They just they kind of have that Georgiev or whatever is like a good goaltender, but he's not like that great. Not that.
Yeah.
And their backup situation in Edmonton is like isn't it Jack Campbell who can't? Stop
the Edmonton situation. Again, it's going to come. What will stop them from winning a cup or advancing deep? It's probably going to be goaltending again. It'll fall apart, and same story that they write every year. So I guess if he feels like that would be a good situation. If he feels like Edmonton. I mean, Colorado is built for a cup run. We know that. There's no doubt about that. And maybe he could jump there, but I'm not going to hold my breath on him moving one way or another, or hold my breath on him unless the situation he feels would be right. Question number 8 from Kim again. This going to Snail. Do you like Sergey Fedorov's white Nike skates, or do skates have to be black? In football, players have all kinds of colors, and black boots are really rare now.
So yes, I loved Sergey Fedorov's infamous Nike skates. Fedorov was truly like a style god. He was awesome. Had a lot of flair, and he had the skill to back it up. Skates for me, I don't know. It's hard to even find skates retail that are anything but a black boot, essentially, with some sort of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of like a metallic in there, or some bluish or blue and red accents are a little bit popular. But for me, like, no, I in hockey culture, they can be so critical about anything outside of the norm. Like, especially like in this day and age, you probably get chirped for having like a Nike Fedorov skate. But I'm all for it. Like, wear whatever you want. Ovi still rocks the yellow laces in his black boots. Like, you never see that kind of stuff anymore. But I'm all for it. I'm a stickler about some things, but as far as skates go, especially if you have the skill to back it up, wear whatever you want. We're kind of starting to see a little bit more customization with guys like Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews up there in Toronto. They don't mind having a special skate made up for them for certain nights that they wear, not just in warm-ups either. So loved the Sergey Fedorov Nikes, and I think we'll probably start to see maybe a little bit more customization league-wide, and not just completely black boots with white laces. Let's see here. Question number 9 from Tony Gale. Heard you guys speaking about video reviews last week. In the Premier League, we've got VAR, which is a video assistant referee, which is similar. Do you think technology is ruining the sports we all enjoy by us becoming over-reliant on it?
So this is one that I want to roundtable with you two, because this is such a hot button topic in sports today, like in this day and age. On one hand, I am of the mindset of we have this technology. Let's get the call right as best as we can with the technology that we have. On the other hand, it's to the point where either the review process takes so long, or you get done with the review process and you still don't agree with the call on the ice or on the field, whatever it is. The rule book is ambiguous, so you don't really know how or what is considered a rule. When is the rule broken? So it is so wishy-washy. But like, for more often than not, I've held the belief that we should get the call right as best as we can with the technology that we have. But this is such a debatable topic among sports fans. So whoever wants to go first can share their piece regarding replay in professional sports.
I mean, I like it. I like getting the call right. I understand the kind of overabundance of it. VAR is kind of its own mess, which is a completely different topic for a soccer podcast to go on about. The NHL, I think, for the most part, gets it right. Again, they were made fun of it first when they use them little screens and stuff like that. I think for the most part, the NHL gets it right. There's only, you can review. I think you should be able to review hits in the head if they're called on the ice, to make sure that there was in fact, because that's happening at such fast speed. I think that needs to be absolutely reviewed. You see that at the college level when they targeting, they will review that. I'd like to see that at an NFL level too, maybe better implemented. The NFL feels like everything's reviewed. Like, I don't even know why they have a challenge flag anymore. It just feels like they basically review every turnover is reviewed, every score play is reviewed. It just feels like that's maybe a little too much. Baseball, I think, gets it right for the most part. And hockey, I feel like gets it right for the most part as well, even if it's I think it's more the rule than the review process. If we can fix the rules, then the review process, I think, doesn't get as much criticism.
I think I'll speak on hockey. I think that the NHL, it's all about getting the call right. But we talked about this, I believe it was last week or earlier this week. But some of these like lengthy review processes and stuff, yeah, it kind of does. I agree that it kind of does dampen the flow of the game, especially like there was like an offsides with Connor McDavid like a week and a half ago or something. You guys familiar with that?
Yeah, he vocally voiced his displeasure with that call. I remember in the media scrum.
Right. So I think something like that, unfortunately, like, yeah, if Connor McDavid's speaking out about it, people are going to listen. But like with offsides calls and stuff, like I, as a fan watching it, I want that right. Like, especially for your, I think as a player too, if someone scores a goal and it was offside and it took them 15 minutes to determine that it was offside, yes, it's ridiculous. But getting the call right, that could mean points mean everything. Like it's all about the playoffs. Like if it's a, you know what I mean? Like I'm for that. But I think that the one thing is, I think Robbie said it was, if these lengthy review processes are coming from something like goaltender interference, where they're trying to, where it's an opinion by the referee making the call anyways, it needs to be, is the rule book in the NHL like the Declaration of Independence? Like you can't amend a single thing. Like it take like, why can't they just go and make it like spend some time at these meetings they have twice a year or whatever with general managers and owners? Why can't they go and make the rule black and white and not so gray? I think that if anything, that it's those gray areas in the rule book that dampen that cause these review processes and dampen the flows of games or whatever. I'd like to see maybe some of these rules revisited and made more simple, so that when things are happening on the ice, it's not, not like the NFL where it's like every single play seems to be under review in the NFL or in football in general. So I do like, one thing that I do like that I think they implemented a few years ago was if you challenge and you get it wrong, you get penalized. The team gets like a power play. I think that's great because it makes you think before just they don't have a challenge flag, but if you had one before throwing the challenge flag, you know what I mean?
Good way to generate offense too. Giving a team a power play. Like I agree with you, Snail. I think the penalization for the getting the challenge wrong, I think, is a fair enough punishment for those who want to use the challenge. Like you said, makes you think twice because you only get one per game, so you better be damn sure that your video replay crew upstairs has on good authority that this call, is worthy of a challenge. Alrighty. With that, we'll go to question 10. We'll go back to Brian here for Robbie. Robbie, how different do you think the history of the Penguins would have been if Marian Hossa had re-signed with the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I love this question, Brian, because I'm a huge Hossa truther. What he did in Pittsburgh during the 3 or 4 months he was here was magic. He instantly clicked with Crosby. He would have been, and maybe even until Gensel, was the best line mate Crosby ever had. I mean, a pure goal scorer. His numbers, he scored 500 goals and netted 1,000 points, never playing any more than 30 games with Sidney Crosby. If he would have played as many games as he did with Sidney Crosby, he would have put up gaudy numbers. He was an amazing two-way player. How would the team history be completely different? I think that even with some faults of Fleury in some years, I still think they win another cup with him there. I definitely think they still win in 2009 and then another time after that. Now, again, James Neal probably never happens if Hossa is in Pittsburgh and a lot of other things don't happen. But Marian Hossa in Pittsburgh would have been magic with Sidney Crosby for the extent of his career. And it's still, again, I've gotten over the initial anger of it. We got our revenge in 2009, but I still think about this hypothetical that if he would have remained in Pittsburgh, what would have happened? And the dude would have posted just absolutely massive numbers. He's already in the Hall of Fame. It would have been magic. And I still, to this day, wish we could have seen more of it because him and Crosby were just, the chemistry was immediate when Hossa was on the ice with Crosby.
Do you know how absolutely horned up I am getting right now thinking of that 2012 year? If they had Hossa and then they picked up Jerome Iginla and that first line was Hossa, Iginla, Crosby.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time. Yeah, those guys,
God dang.
they absolutely, it would have been unbelievable what they could have done. All right, question number 11 from Edward Beckham. Snell here. Why is the NFL so much more popular than United or the NHL? I think I'm saying I think I'm right in saying it is. Yeah, you're correct in that. Personally, I can't get into football, but absolutely love hockey after getting into it a year ago. A reminder that Edward is our friend from the UK, so that's kind of maybe where the confusion comes from.
Right. So yeah, talking NFL here, why it's so popular. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I think it's the few things that came to mind right away. It's pretty simple. One is in the states, hockey. I mean, hockey is historically Canada's sport, and in the states, I mean, the football culture in the South, especially in our country, is massive. There's just no competing with, that culture. And even in Pittsburgh, you guys have high school football on TV. You can catch a high school game. It's just um, it's bigger here because of also the accessibility. I would say as a little kid, if you watch sports, I can remember myself growing up. The first thing I want to do after watching a game or something, or seeing a game on TV, it's like, well, I want to try that. And for hockey accessibility, you need ice or you need rollerblades, you need ice skates, you need a ton of pads. There's a huge learning curve in learning how to be able to skate effectively and then put a puck on the ice and a stick in your hands. That takes some patience and some determination from a young person or an old person, whatever, whoever's starting to pick up the sport. Football, you just need a football, and you can go out and throw the old pigskin around with your whoever, your neighbor, your dad, your siblings. I would say it's accessibility and just the fact that in the U.S. and Canada, we do share a border, and we're really not. In a lot of ways, we're very different. In a lot of ways, we're not that different. But there's a lot of frozen ponds up there. It's built into their culture, and down here, there's simply just not as many. Back in the day, there weren't as many frozen ponds to play shinny on. So I would attribute it to mainly those two things. And I'd invite either of you to, if you've got something on the tip of your tongue, chime in on this. But I think it's probably mostly that.
I definitely agree with you. The accessibility aspect of it cannot be understated. It is so expensive to play hockey, whether it's roller hockey or ice hockey. Snail mentioned all of the equipment you need, whereas the same thing could be said for the NBA too. All you need is a ball and a hoop. For football, for American football, all you need is, like Snail said, the old pigskin. You could throw that ball anywhere. I mean, the accessibility aspect of it cannot be understated. Also, the NFL, I mean, it's become a multi-billion dollar juggernaut, but they also know how to correctly market their athletes and put emphasis on their superstars with that, combination of accessibility and a huge marketing department. It's no secret how the NFL has become America's pastime in 2024. We used to say the old saying was baseball was America's pastime. That ship has long sailed into the NFL's favor. Americans are so crazily obsessed with football, and you'll see that with the Super Bowl coming up in a few weeks. It's going to be one of the most watched television broadcasts in the country, and it is every single year. So just to put a bow on that discussion, yeah, accessibility and marketing go a long way in helping to propel the popularity of your sport.
Yep, the NFL is a juggernaut. The Super Bowl, I've said this for so long, that the Super Bowl is practically a holiday here in the States. So, anyways, yeah, I'd attribute it to mainly those things. Um, I'd be curious, Edward. You should tweet at us. How did you get into He says he got into hockey a year ago. How'd you get into it? If he's across the pond, be curious to know what kind of hockey you're exposed to over there, or if you got buddies who play or something. Let us know. Question number 12 here, going over to Garrett, coming from Andreas Castle. A mustard suggestion. Oh boy. Try Lowensenf lion mustard from Germany, especially the one with the red label. It's a spicy one. The green label is also very tasty. So a little mustard talk, boys.
So I have to level with the both of you here. While you guys were giving your answers to previous questions, I looked ahead to this question. I did not want to butcher this pronunciation. I believe it's pronounced Löwenzempf. If my German is to be accurately transcribed, Löwenzempf is a German mustard. I looked into it last night. Andreas is right. The red label is considered a very, very spicy mustard. I do love how this podcast has branched off into tiny little subplots. And for like the last month, we've been talking about mustard suggestions. I think that's like the most hilarious thing in the world. Anyway, if I don't know if anyone has looked into acquiring even more mustard, because I know we talked about it a few weeks ago. Snail brought up a company in his neck of the woods, or where he goes grocery shopping. I think it was called Beaverton Food Brands. I did order a couple of bottles of uniquely flavored mustard with bacon and honey mustard and whatnot. So I have been giving those mustards a try on lunch meat sandwiches, and they are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was waiting for, a review on those. They're good, huh?
yes, they are absolutely what I 100% recommend for anyone who's interested in expanding their mustard collection inside their refrigerator. But I just love how we continue to talk about mustard week in and week out.
So wait, have you guys ever had Löwenzempf?
No, I haven't. I had no idea what it was before. I had to Google it to figure out what it looked like, what it was, where it came from.
Robbie's muted.
Is Robbie muted? Not again.
Nah, I got it.
There it is.
It does, like, you can buy it in the United States. You can get it off. There are some specialty stores that ship it. So might have to give it a try. I mean, I don't know if I want to go full hot because I don't know how hot that is. But I might have to try the green label. It's listed as medium. So for your reference,
I'm gonna have an eye out for this Löwenzempf.
remember when that guy got mad at us because we didn't talk about hockey the whole time?
Yeah, it was supposed
Oh my god! I
Yeah.
saw his Twitter the other day. Something popped up. I saw him in a comment barking about something. I almost sent it to the group chat. He's still out there terrorizing other people on the internet.
Poor people.
But
He needs
yeah.
to be like sedated.
We should invite him on. Like,
Oh
like,
God.
No, we shouldn't.
No,
I'm
we
not.
should. Yeah,
No.
I'm not dealing with that nonsense. Absolutely not. You're in this. If you're listening to this on a weekly basis, you're in this for the long haul, because like it is a mailbag predominantly talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins and hockey. But when it's like an 8-month season over the course of 82 games, not every question you're going to get in a fan submitted mailbag is going to be talking about the X's and O's of professional hockey.
Especially not when we develop like inside jokes and stuff at this point.
Exactly. So, like if you're still listening to this point, or whether you're just finding us for the first time, know that these mailbag episodes are not going to be 100% talking about hockey.
No, sometimes we talk about the finer things in life, like mustard.
Exactly. With that said, we will go over to question 13 now. The penultimate question of this week's mailbag is from Brian. And well, I have to say this, maybe with egg on my face for Robbie here and Snail. Snail and Robbie need to go back to giving Garrett the basement treatment, because as Brian has called me, quote, Junior is getting out of line. I made the joke last week that William Nylander should be in the running for MVP. Also, I was not that incredibly familiar with Chris Pronger's game at the time, and Brian calls this blasphemous stuff. So, Robbie, Snail, anything you'd like to add for Brian to just keep piling it on? Why don't you?
I just like to know that Brian is just like a man of culture, like myself and Robbie.
Yeah, I know you're obviously younger than us, but the Pronger stuff was kind of shocking because he was still in his prime, well into. I mean, he took the Flyers to a Stanley Cup final. He won a cup in your lifetime, and he was, I mean, a very good player.
He was on the cover of NHL, EA Sports NHL. What year was that?
One of them.
He was on the cover one of those years. So shame on you, Garrett.
I'm handing in my fan card as we speak. As a matter of fact, I guess I'll hand over permanent hosting duties to you two, and I'll just retire. And that
as long as you keep editing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll be a conversation for another day.
Did you go look at any Pronger stuff after we talked, or was it just
Like YouTube highlights? No, but
Yeah.
I googled his hockey reference page. Like I knew who Chris Pronger was. Like my memory is like notoriously awful. I knew he played for the Flyers. I knew he did stuff with the St. Louis Blues. Like Chris Pronger was not a name that I was not already not familiar with. I knew who he was, but off the top of my head, I was like, I had to like really cast my mind back and think. Like I knew he was a good like all-time defenseman. Don't get me wrong. I knew that much about Chris Pronger, but like his career trajectory, no, like if you quizzed me on that outside of like the stuff he did with the Flyers at the tail end, I was like, no, I couldn't tell you anything if you put a gun to my head and said, who is Chris Pronger?
He actually just came out with a whiskey, Journey whiskey. It's a nice, it's a high end sipping whiskey. So, Garrett, I'm gonna send you the YouTube highlights from like 2007 that are in like grainy, just horrible quality with Stained. I think is like
oh my god,
track. It's so good. It'll get you so fired up.
Are we here with the last question?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, we'll wrap up our mailbag and it will be Snell's question. Is it too early? I'm assuming this is tongue in cheek. Is it too early for the NHL to retire MVP William Nylander's number 88?
So this has to be a shot at Garrett.
Of course it is. Everything on this podcast is a shot at me.
Dude, yeah, I don't know. What a take that was. Nylander for MVP.
It was tongue in cheek. It was tongue in cheek.
No, dude, the MVP this year is Nate McKinnon. Dude, Nate McKinnon is on a different planet right now, hockey-wise. Have you guys been seeing the highlights coming out of Colorado on like a nightly basis, it seems like? I mean, he had 4 goals and an assist last night.
Yeah.
And I heard he's on some sort of crazy regimen with his training. Like after every game, he rides a bike for 25 minutes or something, and it's just got him. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, he's definitely one of those guys who's built different, but not tongue in cheek. I think the MVP is Nate McKinnon is just he could, if there was a league higher than the NHL, he'd be in it. Yeah,
right now. Yep.
Well, we got through part 2 of this mailbag, and don't worry, I mentioned, if I mentioned off air, I'll mention on air here. There were a lot of questions submitted to this week's mailbag tweet. Don't worry about those who have submitted questions to this past week's mailbag. Your questions will be answered in next week's edition, along with a brand new mailbag tweet. So we're going to have a continuous flow of content until we answer all of these questions. But don't you worry about those who submitted questions and didn't hear them answered this week. They will for sure be answered during one of the episodes next week. But until then,
quickly, I got to interrupt. Sorry,
go ahead.
I have to bring this up. Where are we at with the Penguins' last game? Just quickly, like, did you guys? I know that it was a late
that's
game.
Right.
Did you see the own goal?
Oh yeah.
Yes, it lives in infamy now at this point.
Yep.
Is that not just like? I feel like that we have the goalie goal from Jari, and then we have that own goal, and that's what this season. If they don't make the playoffs, that's what this season will be remembered for.
Really, 2 definitive ends of a spectrum between the goalie goal and the own goal. It's look, I have no problem saying it here. I mean, it's not like my opinion carries any weight, but I texted you guys the morning after and I said, you know what, like the Penguins are washed. I'm fine with trading Jake Gensel after I was like notoriously against the idea of trading Gensel. And you know what? Like my opinion still hasn't changed. Like the Penguins are who they are at this point. They end up fumbling that 2-0 lead in the third period against Vegas and then have an absolute stinker fest against the more inferior Arizona Coyotes. So I don't think this arbitrary deadline by Kyle Dubas to wait until the All-Star break to fix his team, I don't think it's going to mean anything. Now more than ever, I've come around to the idea of trading Jake Gensel. Just punt on this season. Yeah, it sucks because Crosby's having a great, like, statistically individual season, but sit him down in the offseason, say, we let you down these last few years, last year especially, but, I mean, trade Gensel for a prospect or a future or a pick or whatever. You're going to have some more cap flexibility. maybe in a perfect world, they somehow find a way to minimize or dump Ryan Graves because they gave him all of that money to be a top pairing defenseman, and that hasn't worked out. So, and I'll get off my soapbox for now if anyone wants to chime in before we get out of here. Robbie got nothing? Snail, you're muted.
Nothing.
Snail still muted. Still muted. Going once.
Sorry. I think I sent it to the group chat. That game reopened every wound. Every psychological wound that this club has given me was just tore wide open again. And I was so furious. I couldn't believe that. But yeah, I don't know. Do they punt on the year? I don't know. Part of me still just like, come on, Sid's having such a good year. They gotta add. I don't know anymore.
I do feel badly for Snail because if it hasn't been made clear already, between the three of us, he wears his emotions for this team on his sleeve probably more than I do and more than Robbie does. I'm more even keel than I was maybe 5 or 10 years ago watching hockey, but like Snail is in the trenches every game, and to have to watch that and just like in the moment see that own goal fiasco and like you said, opening up every wound, like I'd just be literally bashing my head against my computer monitor and like just be signing up for psychiatric evaluations.
Yeah, it's getting close to that, man. It's been a long season and it's not even the All-Star break.
Exactly. It's not even the unofficial halfway point. We still have the rest of January, February, March, and part of April for them to let us down and torture us even more.
Yeah.
All right, we can go now.
Alrighty, we can go now. Snail has given the thumbs up, the all good. For Robbie, for Snail, I have been Garrett. Thank you so much for listening to another mailbag here at the Skating Penguin Network, and we will talk to all of you again very soon.